Hi, I'm Katie and this is Sam, and for our foundation portfolio we worked together to create the opening credits for a teen film based in Cornwall around the narrative idea and theme of surfing, as our primary audience research leads us to conclude there was a market for a new product of this nature.
When creating our film, we attempted to use conventions of real teen films to ensure our genre was clearly connoted in order to attract our target audience of fans of that genre. Most of the conventions our film opening uses and develops are seen in indie films we look at in our research. In terms of mainstream cinema, our films mostly breaks and challenges a number of conventions, but I think that this makes our film more unique and suited to the target audience, as many teens are getting bored of the same old Hollywood formulas anyway. Having said this, we do borrow some things from Hollywood cinema conventions because straight away we are looking in a genre teen coming of age where the ideology of the genre is a very American concept. But as we are not filming in America and want something that is more social realist, we do not follow the Hollywood style of stereotypically setting our film in or around a high school. Instead, to represent our target audience, we set our film near a Cornish beach and base the narrative on a film surf instructor.
These mise-en-scène narrative and character choices can be justified as they better represent our Cornish/British target audience by linking to Higginson's theory of regional identity, as we follow the stereotypes of Cornwall being an area of outstanding natural beauty where young people live a beach lifestyle that is trouble and fun, which also links into Osgerby's 1998 theory to represent our target audience.
In other words, in our 2-minute opening, we use a well-known Cornish beach, Towan in Newquay, and show the route down to this popular surfing spot, which makes the film real, personal to our target audience, who will buy into the world we are creating as it is familiar to them, which fits into Bath's theory as it allows the audience to enjoy the film as we have made it a believable setting.
I agree with Sam here because the props used to display the credits also fit the whole surfing theme, which helps create continuity throughout our opening. A convention of teen films is also the use of everyday objects to help it feel realistic, and although our props used aren't necessarily a part of every teenager's lives, they're common for teenagers, or people in general, who surf, which helps them identify with our character and the scene. So it's yet again a convention we decided to develop on. This fits into Higginson's regional identity theory, as it lets the target audience share the identity shown on screen as it is familiar to them.
With our character, we develop and challenge conventions of Hollywood teen films, again as we don't include the typical jock, cheerleader, nerd and outsider. Instead we develop on the convention of the new girl, who breaks stereotypes which fits with popular recent trends seen in films such as The Hunger Games. Although we don't suggest her character is new to the area, the use of a female surfer rather than a male breaks stereotypes, as surfing is viewed as a fairly masculine sport. The typical new girl character is also meant to come across as intriguing, which we achieve through the use of enigmas by not giving too much about her personality through the use of any media language. However, as we've used a stereotypically attractive female actress, it's arguably the case that this character fits Laura Mulvey's 1975 theory, because some males in the target audience may be drawn to the film as they find her attractive.
In terms of narrative, our opening breaks Todorov's narrative theory, as we only really give the audience an equilibrium at this stage and show that our film will borrow stylistic ideas from popular surf films such as Endless Summer from the 1970s, as our opening is quite artistic and retro, as opposed to a traditional opening of a teen film that would probably outline a disruption in the opening. In terms of camera work, I was principal photographer, and during our research we looked at the films Chasing Mavericks, Lords of Dogtown and Napoleon Dynamite. Our opening shot is a medium shot that shows a retro-style window, connoting the retro style the target audience will find appealing, as it draws on popular films like Lords of Dogtown and Napoleon Dynamite, whilst also connoting the surf aspect of our genre, as there is also a surf logo on the wall. Throughout the rest of the 2-minute clip, we continued to create a visual collage with a retro style fitting to indie films such as Napoleon Dynamite, because we break conventions of classic Hollywood films by not revealing the main character, but instead we use a range of interesting angles to reveal, such as close-ups of surf-related props in the shop, long shots of the beach to help establish the setting for the film, tracking shots of her walk down to the beach, and high angles of the character's feet. Our main aspect is the use of a point of view shot, which is a convention of the teen genre, but on the whole, our opening subverts conventions as we focus on mise-en-scène that connotes the genre rather than the star vehicles at this point.
In terms of our actual film shoots, we decided to shoot on another day as we weren't pleased with our original clip, felt that there was a lot of potential to improve. We filmed in a different and much larger surf shop called the Wave Project. We took this advantage to use some more conventions and have the credits for the first half written on props rather than digitally edited on afterwards, following our prime inspiration for our film, Napoleon Dynamite. When watching its opening, we were instantly attracted to the use of props for it. When she helps move around the shop, this helps the film feel real, helping your audience feel part of it, whilst not drawing any attention away from the credits or the narrative. Point of view shots are a convention of teen films, and we decided to revolve our entire opening credit sequence around this idea. As well as creating a feeling of continuity, it makes the audience feel like they are the character, rather than watching them from a distance.
Teen films tend to follow the aspect of the uses and gratifications theory, which was developed in the 1960s and then expanded in 1974 by Bloomer and Katz, that the reason why audience will consume their media text is because of personal identity. This is the idea that audience watch films in order to identify with the main character, and the use of a point of view shot is definitely a strong factor contributing towards this, as well as the use of a character similar to our primary target audience. We use a variety of shots to keep our credit sequence interesting. However, we ensured to use some long establishing shots that are to convention of every title sequence, as it's essential to set the scene straight away so can't be excluded. After our second shooting day, we challenged the typical order that credits are in. Originally, we followed the exact order agreed on from our research, but moved the casting by credits from after the actors until after music by. We did this because of the convenience of where the props were, and how we felt it supported conventions of the genre and still appeared appropriate.
Katie and I spent a lot of time making the final decision for our non-diegetic title music, as we decided that this was one area of our film that we wanted it to fit teen conventions, and we came to the conclusion to use an upbeat instrumental in order to create the right atmosphere. We developed further on this due to the fact we have surfing aspect mixed in with our film, so we listened to loads of tracks in our spare time in order to find something would create the right vibe. Our final choice fits both of these ideas perfectly. It's upbeat yet relaxed and creates a sensation that the audience are on a beach. We also achieve this with use of another teen film convention, the use of diegetic sounds effects, useful for a realistic effect.
We only use faint ambient sounds of the beach and occasional sound effects when our character moves around the shop. The use of diegetic sound effects makes it feel more real and helps entice the audience this way, as they can feel a part of it. However, we avoid maximising the volume of the sound so that we don't take any attention away from the clips. The use of title music also helps with continuity. We also added diegetic dialogue at the end of our opening to progress the narrative and characterisation. In terms of editing, continuity editing is common in teen films as they're quite basic and different types of editing can draw attention away from the action. We've used a lot of continuity editing and sound bridges to show the journey to the beach, but have also included a range of action matches, graphic matches, fades and overlay effects to make our opening more unique and more creative, to make it fit indie conventions our target audience would want to see.
Our media product mainly revolves around representing people living in the local area, a Cornish audience. Straight away with our first ident, Kerno Distribution, we represent people living in Cornwall. The background used is a beach with waves to represent the people on the coast of Cornwall, or even people living in the coastal area, as it'll remind them of home. The use of a white Caucasian protagonist represents a majority of the Cornish population, as in the 2011 census, 95.7% of the population in Cornwall were recognised as white Cornish, English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish, or British. We also use one of the kinder stereotypes for Cornish people, surfers.
We follow Higson's theory from 1998 that states how stereotyping is a form of shorthand, a way of establishing character. As unrealistic stereotypes tend to be, the use of one from a particular region makes it easier for the audience to identify and represents a large group of people. The age group we decided to represent are teenagers, primarily due to the fact that it's the age we both are, so it's the age we most identify with and felt we could represent the most successfully. Youth today in mainstream media are portrayed, according to Osgoby, using mixed metaphors. Dick Hebdige in 1988 termed these youth as fun and youth as troublemaker. We chose to represent youth in a less pessimistic manner, developing on pre-existing stereotypes for a particular age group.
In 1904, Stanley Hall wrote Adolescence in 2 volumes in 1904. In this text, he put forward a theory known as the storm and stress model. Despite being written over 100 years ago, it's still relevant to modern youth stereotyping in film. He argues 3 main points: that the common mood of teenagers is a state of depression, criminal activity increases between the ages of 12 and 24, and that the young people are extreme and need excitement, which is frequently sought in sex, drinks or drugs. We came to a mutual agreement to completely challenge this idea and represent teenagers more accurately and respectively. The use of a female protagonist represents that gender and also disrupts Laura Mulvey's theory that females are just used as erotic objects of desire for the spectre and characters in the story. We achieve this in the opening with the use of a point of view shot that avoids actually showing the character until the end, preventing any sexualizing of her character. The female character is also breaking stereotypes of being a surfer, as most people associate surfing with being a masculine sport.
In the ideal world, we would be able to attract the attention of a Hollywood distributor, as larger conglomerate distribution companies would be beneficial, as occasionally they can be used as selling points for a film, because the audience will remember them for successful and enjoyable films in the past. If we were to use one, it would be a Hollywood distribution company because of their immensely larger budgets that enable their films to be distributed globally. Hollywood and Britain are on an extremely uneven playing field, especially when it comes to distribution, and most British films use Hollywood distribution companies. One example of a distribution company we could use is Paramount Pictures, as they're known for distributing teen films such as Grease, Clueless, and Napoleon Dynamite. Some companies have an incredibly strong connotation with a particular genre, such as Disney with fantasy films, so we would avoid anything like that.
However, in reality, we would have an independently owned British media institution or institutions such as the BBC or Film for distribute our media product, as it's only targeted towards a niche audience, so wouldn't attract the attention of any larger distribution companies, particularly those that are a part of Hollywood. Those companies such as Warner Bros, 20th Century Fox and Paramount Pictures aim to earn the highest possible profit, whereas smaller institutions would be more easily convinced to give smaller independent films a chance. A larger distribution company isn't even necessary for our film, as we would have no intentions of distribution globally, due to the fact that our prime target audience live in the local area.
In the end, Sam and I agreed upon creating our own distribution company called Kerno Distributions that would be locally based and ensure that our film is exhibited specifically to our primary target audience of people living in the county. Our distribution company would also have some funds to distribute in some other areas of the UK, so as to get a film exhibited to our secondary target audience of holidaymakers who regularly travel to Cornwall but won't necessarily live here. For our distribution company, the use of the word Kerno also achieves this, as our target audience are the group of people most likely to recognise that it means Cornwall in the local language. Despite the fact Cornish is only spoken typically by the elder people in the county, this word in particular is widely recognised and will help create a sense of pride and community. The use of the word distributions also straight away lets the audience know the intentions and purpose of the company, which could be good for the business. The name in general is also quite simple and easy to remember.
Our primary target audience are white Cornish females, aged around 12 to 18. They would be in social classes A to C1, as although the demographics of Cornwall show us as a lower, coastal Cornwall is more typically the holiday makers and people with money who can afford seaside homes and luxuries such as surfing lessons, the prime aspect of our film. This, along with the fact our film is regional, creates a very niche audience for our film. No particular religion is targeted towards, and we are aiming it towards a new audience, as it is not part of a pre-existing franchise. We chose this particular audience to target as it's the group we identify with the most, making it an easier task to understand and relate to. we would have a secondary target audience of males, as surfing is generally viewed as a male sport. And the fact that surfing is such a vital and large part of our film will mean we can bring more masculine audience in. Our secondary target audience would also involve slightly older females who relate to the school part of our narrative from their past. It would also include holiday makers with homes in Cornwall who don't live in the area.
The Four Cs is one of the earliest but still most popular ways of profiling audiences. Our primary target audience would fit into the reformers category. Our film is all about being happy with who you are, and the concept of the beach and the ocean creates the sense of being free, and people who fit into the reformers category are not materialistic and have a caring and responsible ideology. We imagine them to be fans of films such as Napoleon Dynamite and Mean Girls, and some niche surf films such as View from the Blue Moon. We used films like these as inspirations when creating our openings so that we would attract a similar audience. Every decision made was made with our target audience in mind. When preparing for our final product, we created a questionnaire on SurveyMonkey that we ensured was sent predominantly to people who fit our primary target audience profile. But we did also send the link to a few members of the public who fall into our secondary target audience profile to certify that our film opening will appeal to the right people. We asked them questions about our title, music, narrative, and colour palette, and took into account all of these results whilst planning and shooting. Our first ident straight away attracts our target audience of Cornish people living in coastal areas. The use of wave footage and the didactic ambient sounds of the beach will remind them of home. It also targets the psychographic our target audience fits into, reformers. The atmosphere created, mainly via the use of sound, will create a sense of freedom and relaxation, so that right from the beginning they will know it's the right film for them. The use of a point of view shot throughout the entirety of the opening will attract our target audience, as it will make them feel like they are a part of the film, rather than watching from the outside. It will help them identify with the character, linking in with the uses and gratification theory, that one reason as to why audiences absorb a variety of media platforms is for personal identity. The opening sequence is vital to capture the attention of the audience, so we felt it was important to address this, and felt a POV was a simple yet effective method.
Our setting, a beach in Newquay, makes the film feel extremely personal to people who recognise the area, Cornish people and holiday makers. Although not everyone in Cornwall will have personally visited the town, they'll still relate to the fact it's a beach town. This will only attract a niche audience, but we are aiming for a mainstream crowd, so this achieves what we aim to do. The mise-en-scène in the surf shop will attract our surfing audience as it directly relates to a main aspect of their lives. Our protagonist used is also an exact replication of what we imagine our target audience to be like. This links back to the uses and gratifications theory mentioned earlier. If people identify and relate to the main character, they're more likely to be attracted and interested in the film.
The title attracts our target audience, as the word surf will appeal to our surfing audience, as they'll identify it with a part of themselves. The word school will attract the correct age group, as teenagers' lives are centred around the schooling system, making it something they're extremely likely to relate to. As mentioned in a previous question, we chose to challenge and develop on youth stereotypes, deciding to portray them more accurately and respectfully. This would help attract our target audience, as youth are the group most commonly attacked on all media platforms, due to the inability to defend themselves as they're in school and don't have the opportunity to work in the industry until they're adults. This is also the case for how we stereotype Cornish people.
The use of more positive stereotype will help attract our target audience living in the area, as it will help them feel a sense of pride in their home, rather than them having to watch a harsh stereotype be magnified for a comic effect against their county. Those of the female gender will also be attracted to our film with the challenging of stereotypes. Females are typically portrayed as powerless and weak, and are typically sexualized as a love interest for the male protagonist. This ideology typically reaches a more masculine audience, hence why we challenged it.
Looking back at our preliminary task, we feel we have learned an incredible amount in progression from it to our full product. Our organisation from our preliminary task, or lack thereof, was particularly in desperate need for improvement. Not much was involved for the pre-production stage for our prelim task, whereas for our final product, much more was required due to the need for it to be of a much higher quality. I developed on my knowledge of storyboards, as I only created a basic one for the prelim task that was severely lacking in detail. I learnt that a more detailed storyboard enables filming on the day and editing to be much easier, despite the fact that things will change and improvising will be common. My prelim task storyboard didn't remotely focus on sound or timing for each shot, and for my final task my timing was far from perfect and is an area I would like to continue to develop on. My storyboard for my final task also involved a much larger number of shots and allowed me to experiment with a bigger range of shots, and varying camera movement, angle and shot type enabled me to learn more about how cinematography is extremely important for things such as keeping your opening interesting, as it is vital for the opening of a film to be interesting, so as to entice their audience straight away, representing groups of people and attracting an audience.
I definitely feel I gained more of an insight as to what shot types are appropriate for the intended media product, due to the fact we had a particular target audience in mind for our final product. A storyboard was essentially my only form of planning for my preliminary task, whereas for my final task I also worked on a shot list and production schedule for the first time.
As I got into a residential with the British Film Institute, NFTS, in the role of a producer, the schedule was very useful for me to practice with and learn about, as it's not something I'm familiar with. I learnt what sort of detail it needed to include, and although the timings didn't end up exactly correct, it helped Sam and I keep to a timetable and not run out of time. We did capture all the footage intended from that day. Rather than just going out and filming, we had to carefully plan how different aspects of our opening credits would attract our primary target audience, which was a long process to achieve. We also had to do way more preparation in the form of researching other films of the same genre and analysing film openings in general to ensure we would follow conventions and make a realistic and professional-looking final product.
This includes studying their title orders, typography, lighting, camera work, sound. I believe that with our final product, this was used very successfully and we learnt a lot. We also learnt that sometimes with film, you just have to bite the bullet and go out for another day of shooting in order to achieve better shots than you did originally. For my final product, we went out for 2 extra days shooting in Newquay, and the shots gathered from those 2 days were of a much higher quality and had a much greater potential to reach and attract our primary target audience.
I also learnt about the use of a Steadicam rather than a tripod, and how you can swap between the two to create the perfect shot. For my final product, I also had to practice with focus pulls more accurately and often, so as to avoid it looking unprofessional. With our prelim task, we failed to understand and abide by the 180-degree rule, and since then we've made sure we know how to apply it to our own work, so it doesn't look unprofessional and make the audience feel uncomfortable. We also learned how vital sound is and how it shouldn't be underrated for the importance in a film. It's needed to attract the right audience and can be the difference as to whether your film is good or not.
I also improved dramatically with my editing, as with our preliminary task we just used iMovie, but with our final task we were taught how to use Premiere Pro and After Effects instead, and as it has more features and more potential to create a higher quality film.
During the process of constructing this film, I had to learn my way around a Canon 5D with a 1.5/35mm filming lens. I took both out along with a Steadicam during 2 separate weekends to get some practice with them to ensure that, on the day, I was prepared and ready to go. I had a go with adjusting the settings to see what worked best in different lightings and areas, etc. The main area of focus I discovered would come as a challenge were focus pulls. My first few attempts weren't incredibly successful and far from professional looking, but I gradually improved over the weekends. I made sure to practice some particular shots I knew our opening credits would include, such as looking down at feet and zooming into them. The use of a Samyang film lens also enabled me to change the aperture, which came especially useful in the shop on the second shooting day when we were filming in front of a window. Although only subtle changes to aperture were made throughout filming, it was necessary for continuity during our opening credits for the lighting to remain similar and at an appropriate intensity. It was also useful to get some experience with the Steadicam before the first shooting day, as I found out that it weighed a significant amount more than initially expected. I walked around my estate with it to get a feel for how steady it was and what potential shots it could create before showing Sam the footage. We were both pleased with the results, hence the use of it for our first shooting day with the tracking shots leading down to the beach. The second shooting day brought about the usage of a tripod and a dolly, which we mutually agreed were more appropriate to use in the shop. It created a steadier shot and was much easier to use, although it took a few attempts to adapt to rolling and spinning the tripod around on the dolly, which wasn't as easy as anticipated. Sam and I repeatedly set up and took down the tripod, adjusting the height to be similar to the height of our actress, and I worked with our actress moving the tripod around and adjusting focus, and ensuring her hands could be in the shot whilst keeping it looking like a POV shot. Sam and I also had to use Blogger an extreme amount in order to achieve a high standard of work, as it was very useful in displaying our work for future viewing. We learnt how to create a professional-looking blog and how to save, publish and edit blog posts. It was easy to access from all computers and vital for containing all of our research and planning. We also used Word due to its benefits, such as the element of spell check.
During the editing process of our film, we have used many technological programs, learning a lot in the process. For this film, we used Premiere Pro to edit. This was a big step up from when we did the preliminary task, as we used iMovie. The very first thing we learnt from it was the importing of clips. To move clips around, we used the selection tool. Another aspect of Premiere Pro we learnt was the cutting of clips. For this, we used the razor tool or Command K for a shortcut. When editing, the zoom tool allowed me to find a precise point in the clip to cut. In Premiere Pro, we also learnt how to change the audio gain from the camera and the music we selected to be in there. Even though we never used any audio from the cameras, we still learnt how to mute it and project the music over it. Throughout our title sequence, we felt surfing footage would be very relevant. We added it in by overlapping the footage we gained over a surfing relating clip. For example, the surf footage over the surfing book. We did this by adjusting the opacity and then changing the blend mode. While doing this, we learnt that Premiere Pro allowed you to overlap in many ways. This is something we'll learn as we never had access to this feature on iMovie. To create our opening credits, we used Adobe After Effects, as this was a professional program. It's excellent at making CGI content, which persuaded us to create our opening credits in it. The first thing we learnt was creating a new composition. This is what would make our moving credits on. As we needed to have text, we created a text layer which first was unknown by us. When we did our storyboard for the title sequence, we realised we were going to need graphics to put over features at Nuki. We made these graphics in Photoshop. Photoshop wasn't new to us, as we have used it in previous subjects. However, certain features within Photoshop, like making our credits a PNG, I did learn. We did this by using the Magic Wand tool to clear the background. This let us place the credits in our desired places.
Overall, I think using a professional digital camera, editing software and the internet to distribute and exhibit our work, we have proved anyone can become a producer of a digital text and reach an audience even without a massive budget, and this fits the theories we have learned about from Gauntlet 2008. This whole project has actually inspired me to look into careers in film, and the whole production side of it, like the schedule, I found really interesting. So it's now inspired me to want to be a film producer in my future life.
This project influenced me to maybe go into the marketing side of media, because even though I had a work experience at Proper Cornish, they showed me the marketing side up there, and it was very big, which I liked.